When we first moved in, our neighbor brought over a pie and a Smirk. "New blood on the block," he said. "Hope you know how things work around here." I thought he was being friendly until we got a letter demanding $500 for neighborhood maintenance. That didn't exist. When I refused, dead animals started appearing on our lawn every morning. When I finally installed cameras, I caught him on tape, but he had friends in City Hall. Reporting him only made the retaliation worse. We bought the house on Birchwood Lane in Geneva, Illinois, with every intention of finally settling down. It was quiet, neat, and had a kind of charm that felt safe. My wife, Danielle, and I had saved for nearly a decade to make this move for us and our 2 boys, Noah and Alex. We had no idea what waited for us behind those freshly painted fences. The first afternoon, as we unloaded the last box, the knock came. I opened the door, sweaty and tired. There he stood. Early 60s, tall and wiry, faded Cubs cap, and an odd crooked grin that made me uneasy the second I saw it. "New blood on the block," he said, holding out a pie in a tin-filled tray. "I'm Harold Granger. Hope you know how things work around here." I forced a polite smile and took the pie. "We're happy to be here." His cold eyes glanced past me into the house. "You'll figure it out." I brushed it off as small-town weirdness. We finished unpacking and toasted with pizza and beer, unaware of the nightmare about to start. The letter came a week later. A plain white envelope slipped under our door. Inside was a single typed page demanding $500 for neighborhood maintenance dues. There was no letterhead, no HOA seal, nothing. I walked up and down the street the next day, stopping by each neighbor's home to ask if they got one too. They looked at me confused, some even worried. Nobody else got a letter. I marched right over to Harold's house. He opened the door just enough to stare at me through the gap. "Problem?" "Yeah." I held up the letter. "This. What the hell is this? It's how we keep Birchwood Lane nice and tidy. There's no HOA. Some things don't have to be official." I stood there stunned as he slowly, deliberately closed the door in my face. Danielle told me to let it go. "We don't want trouble, Luke," she whispered. I listened. I should have listened to myself instead. The next morning, there was a dead rat on our front step. The day after that, a squirrel with its neck snapped was laid in our driveway. A crow, then a raccoon, then a cat. Always before dawn. Always bloody. I called the police. They showed up 2 hours later, barely pretending to care. "Probably just wild animals," the officer said. Danielle stood behind me, clutching Noah's hand. Alex was too young to understand, but Noah saw everything. His tiny face twisted in confusion and fear. I bought cameras and floodlights. I told Danielle I wasn't going to let someone terrorize my family. The first week of footage showed nothing. But at 3:22 a.m. on the 8th day, there he was. Harold. Hoodie pulled tight, ball cap underneath, walking calmly across our lawn with a trash bag. He knelt by our porch and pulled out the limp body of a cat, laying it down like he was setting a fragile package. I burned the footage onto a USB and went to the police. They stared at the screen, unimpressed. "Harold's been part of this town a long time," one of them said. "You sure you want to cause problems?" I realized then, Harold had protection. Friends in city council, old buddies on the force. We were on our own. Then the real war started. Someone slashed our tires. Our mailbox was bashed in. Obscene notes were shoved under our door. Once, we came home to find the words "Leave" scrawled in what looked like red paint across our garage. I wasn't sure if it was paint. I posted the video online. Local forums. Facebook groups. I filed an official complaint with the mayor's office. I emailed news outlets. A reporter from the Kane County Chronicle reached out. She was young, determined, and said she'd heard stories about Harold for years. No one ever spoke up because it was easier to pay. We weren't paying. But someone upped the ante. Our dog, Lucky, vanished. Danielle found him in the woods behind our house, barely breathing. He had deep cuts and couldn't stand. He died 2 days later at the vet. I held Danielle as she sobbed into my chest. "I can't do this anymore, Luke," she whispered. "We have kids." I clenched my fists. "Neither can I." I hired a private investigator. His name was Marty Hines, former Chicago PD, now working the suburbs. He charged a lot, but I didn't care anymore. Marty uncovered everything. Harold had been extorting new residents on Birchwood Lane for over 20 years. When they didn't pay, he and a small group of old-timers, retired cops, ex-city employees, bitter old men with nothing to lose, terrorized them until they either paid or moved. Some did both. Nobody had ever gotten it on record. I gathered every photo, document, video clip, and witness statement I could and handed them to the Chronicle reporter. The story exploded across Illinois news within days. Harold's name was everywhere. The city tried to stay quiet, but the public backlash was brutal. People marched outside City Hall demanding accountability. TV vans lined our street. They arrested Harold. He spent 48 hours behind bars. His smirk was gone in the mugshot, replaced by hollow, sunken eyes. But they didn't keep him long. His friends pulled strings. He came home to cheers from a small group of loyalists. The vandalism returned. Our house was egged. Rocks shattered our windows. One night, they burned our car in the driveway. We barely got the boys out before the fire spread. I stood in the yard barefoot, holding Alex, staring at the flames lighting up the sky. Danielle wept. "We can't stay." I stared at the house, jaw tight. "No. Not yet." I couldn't sleep after the fire. Every creak of the floorboards, every passing car sent a jolt of panic through me. Danielle and I argued constantly. I kept saying we had to stay and finish this. She wanted to protect the kids and run. We were barely speaking. The day after the fire, I found another envelope taped to our charred mailbox. Inside was a single word, typed in bold, "Run." The private investigator, Marty, told me I had two options, move or go for the kill. I chose the latter. We took shifts sleeping. Cameras were hidden in bushes, gutters, even the birdhouse by the porch. I upgraded our security system to something out of a military base. I called every news station. I reached out to state and federal officials, the Better Business Bureau, even the FBI. Most ignored me. But then we caught something worse on tape. One of Harold's goons, a man named Denny Caldwell, retired cop, mean as hell, was filmed trying to tamper with our gas line. The footage was undeniable. I handed it off to the Chronicle reporter. She ran the story within hours. It went national. CNN, MSNBC, and even Dateline NBC picked it up under the headline, "Suburban Extortion Ring. The Terror on Birchwood Lane." Within a week, 3 city officials resigned. 2 more were indicted. Harold was arrested again, this time with no help coming. That should have been the end. It wasn't. 3 days after the arrests, a lawsuit arrived on my doorstep. Harold, from jail, was suing me for defamation, harassment, and emotional distress. "He's lost everything," the lawyer explained. "This is him trying to bleed you dry out of spite. We drained our savings to fight it." The legal bills crushed us. Danielle was ready to walk. "I want out," she said one night, standing in the doorway with her suitcase. "I can't do this anymore, Luke. I'm scared for the boys. I'm scared for me." I didn't beg. I didn't argue. I just nodded. She left with the kids to stay with her sister in Indiana. I stayed. I kept gathering evidence. I chased down every loose end. I interviewed other victims who had once lived on Birchwood Lane. I helped the FBI map out the whole network. I burned myself out. I lost weight. I stopped sleeping. Then the unthinkable happened. One evening, I got home and saw the door slightly open. My stomach sank. Inside, my living room had been torn apart. Furniture slashed, pictures smashed, cabinets emptied. On the wall in red paint, "You lost." My phone vibrated. A message from a block number: "You should have paid. Now it's your turn." The cops came. They filed the report. No arrests. I sat on the curb outside my house as the sun came up, breathing heavily, shaking. That was when I called Danielle. "I'm done," I said quietly. I lost. 2 days later, I sold the house for half of what we paid. We left Illinois for good. I felt humiliated, beaten, broken. I couldn't even look my kids in the eyes. I thought that was the ending. But karma doesn't forget. 6 months later, I got a call from the detective working the case. Harold Granger had been found dead in his home. Shotgun. Self-inflicted. The investigators found a detailed suicide note confessing to everything, every name, every bribe, every crime. He gave up every last one of his accomplices. The letter ended with 5 words. "They wouldn't break the stubborn." I sat there staring at the wall for a long time. Within weeks, 20 people were arrested statewide. Every one of them tied back to Harold's ring. Corruption charges. Extortion. Conspiracy. Some were city employees. Some were former cops. A few were just local thugs. The lawsuits against me vanished overnight. The headlines were everywhere. Suburban extortion kingpins fall after deathbed confession. The man who wouldn't pay, one family's fight ends corrupt network. I wasn't a hero. I'd lost everything. But I had won. Danielle and I slowly rebuilt. She let me come back. The kids forgave me in their quiet, simple way. We started over in Colorado. Smaller house. Less neighbors. No HOA. But every time I see a pie, I still flinch. The papers called me a hero. Strangers sent letters of thanks. Reporters wanted interviews. I refused them all. I didn't feel like a hero. Heroes don't drag their families through hell. Heroes don't watch their dog die, their home burn, or their marriage almost end because they're too damn proud to walk away. I had won. But I had lost almost everything to do it. The official reckoning came fast. Harold's suicide note was over 8 pages long. Names, dates, amounts, threats. It was a blueprint of the entire extortion ring. Cops, inspectors, clerks, contractors. Anyone new to Birchwood Lane was a target. Some victims had paid tens of thousands over the years just to be left alone. Most had moved. A few had filed complaints but were silenced or scared off. I was the only idiot stubborn enough to fight it to the bitter end. One by one they fell. 23 arrests in total. The Illinois Attorney General himself called it the worst case of small-town organized extortion ever uncovered in the state's history. The city of Geneva tried to apologize. They offered me a settlement. I refused. I didn't want their money. I just wanted peace. Danielle finally let me come back. I didn't blame her for leaving. I blamed myself for letting it go as far as it did. We bought a modest home in Longmont, Colorado. No HOA. No welcome pies. I still kept cameras on the porch, the garage, and the backyard. Danielle joked I was paranoid. I didn't care. Every time I stepped outside, I scanned the street without thinking. The nightmares lingered for a while. I'd wake up in cold sweats hearing phantom knocks at the door or finding red paint across my walls again. The boys were young enough to bounce back faster. I was not. The final twist came almost a year later. I got an unmarked letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was an old photograph. Black and white. Grainy. It showed Harold, maybe 25 years younger, standing proudly in front of the first house on Birchwood Lane, arms crossed, that same smug grin. On the back, scrawled in uneven handwriting, "There's always someone next." My stomach dropped. I stared at the photo for what felt like hours. I burned it in the kitchen sink. That's where it ends. Harold's empire died with him. His friends are either behind bars or waiting for trial. Birchwood Lane is just another street now. I check sometimes on Google Maps. The house looks plain. Fresh paint. New mailbox. Clean lawn. I hope the new owners never know what happened there. As for me, I stay out of neighborhood politics. I don't go to block parties. I don't answer doorbells I'm not expecting. I wave at neighbors, but I never get too close. They say time heals everything. I'm still waiting.